Thanks for joining me today, here with Jester as we take on a MiG-19. I'm going to switch off our roll SAS, flick on our gun, and get our aircraft ready for a fight. Those of you who have flown the F-4E against the MiG-19 and have lost will probably find some lessons to learn and nuggets to glean from this video. I don't share this to bolster my ego as the master of BFM in this airplane. I just would like to walk through an encounter with a MiG-19, kind of point out some metrics and relevant performance margins, and kind of shed some light for some of you who have had some struggles fighting this particular MiG, especially in single player or multiplayer roles. Sometimes you just need someone to show you a different perspective on something you've been doing, and that's all you need to improve. So the MiG comes by over here. I'm going to go into a slicing horizontal turn. This is something that's going to go against the book, and there are very good reasons why. Some of you are probably screaming or maybe running to your keyboards to type out a comment to the effect of "what the heck am I doing?" Because obviously, as any buddy with more than 1.5 brain cells knows, you always turn in the vertical in this plane. However, there are some limitations to that tactical guidance, and you're going to see those in this fight here. Those tactical manuals were prepared by the U.S. military in context of Vietnam, where the MiGs that these F-4s encountered were the MiG-17 and earlier models of the MiG-21. So those particular aircraft did not have the climb rate or the acceleration to challenge an F-4, and that's one of the reasons why the tactical advice was written the way it was. So using the vertical against those MiGs was pretty successful. However, that advice does not necessarily apply to the MiGs that you're going to encounter in DCS. For one, the MiG-21Bs is much more powerful than the earlier model MiG-21s that were deployed to Vietnam, at least in the Rolling Thunder years. And the MiG-19 that we're fighting today is definitely more potent than even the MiG-21 in subsonic performance. In both climb rate and turn rate, the MiG-19 beats the F-4, which is a fact that I think may be a surprise to some folks, but those of you who have fought it in multiplayer sessions can certainly verify that. So while the F-4 is faster in a straight line top speed dynamic, in the subsonic turning environment, the MiG-19 is better. Again, better turn, better climb, better acceleration. So we can't simply rely on that power to get us out of trouble. We tried for a sparrow shot here, doesn't work out. So we're back to the old-fashioned way here. I'm going to turn back into the MiG-19. As noted, we can't use vertical maneuvering here because if we tried it, what would happen is, chime in the comments if this has happened to you guys, the F-4 would just climb up, the MiG would climb up with it, and then the F-4 would get to the top of the vertical climb with no airspeed, hanging out in the clear blue sky, and the MiG would just walk right up to you and shoot you. That sounds like something you've experienced in the F-4. That is not an accident. That's because, again, the MiG-19 has better performance in the F-4 in subsonic regimes. So if we had tried to do the vertical thing against the MiG-19, all that would do is keep us out of energy and an easy shot at the top of our climb. Whereas if we go into a horizontal turn in a lower altitude, that puts the F-4 in thicker air, better environment for the low speed turn, which is what's going to end up happening anyway if you go into the phone booth with the MiG-19. So obviously this is not an ideal performance parameter for the F-4, but as you can see here, it can be done. You just have to have the roll SAS off and use the rudders to control your roll, which is what I am doing here. While the F-4 is perhaps not suited to the low speed dance, if you fly it properly, it can still hold its own in this regime. So don't think that below 200 knots your F-4E is a brick. That's not necessarily the case. So you just have to be willing to get some practice in on that. Now you see me whiff that gunshot. If I had been a bit better with my air-to-air gunnery right there, that would have been the end of the fight. So it just goes to show you that the F4, again, is not some useless sled below 200 knots. You can still definitely fly and fight this thing very slow. You just need to have, again, your flaps down and your roll sass off. Just be aware that if you want to extend from the fight, you will have to be careful and choosy with your moment of escape, or you'll present yourself as a target to the bandit. And we'll see that kind of in a little bit as we progress here. So lose a little bit of control here, regain it in just a couple of moments. This is one of the risks with fighting slow speed in the F4. If you use aileron at the wrong time, you get adverse yaw, and that happens. So something that each of us will have to practice with our control setup. I can't tell you how to fly your PC because everybody's got different curves and things and like that, but just be aware that, again, the F4 is not completely helpless in the low speed fight. And while this isn't ideal with a bandit like the MiG-19 that has better climb, better acceleration, better turn rate, we don't really have the ability to just power over a man. So MiG-19 overshoots, see some cannon rounds there. We're doing our usual vertical loop, and typically if you're up against a MiG-21 or 17 or 15 in this position, this would be the end of the fight. But as you notice, that farmer just hits the gas and climbs right over us like we're nothing. So this is one of the reasons why trying to beat the farmer in the vertical in an F4 just isn't really a winning strategy here. So the plan is basically you need to get inside their turn circle, use a low-speed BFM. Ironically, in this situation, the low-speed fight is where the F4 is actually a little bit better than the MiG, because the MiG has a bigger adverse yaw situation than the F4 does. The F4 has slats and those big, huge J79s. The MiG-19, you've got swept wing, 1950s era controls. So again, it can be controlled with the rudder, but most people are not experienced in the MiG-19 settings to do it effectively. And even the opponent here is having some trouble. So if you're good at the low speed fight in the F4, you can certainly win. And if you're better at air-to-air gunnery than me, which is not a hard bar to climb, you can do some damage. But just be aware that again, if you want to do this, you're pretty much committed to finishing the fight unless you can pick your moment to exit. So now that the MiG is behind me, once I have crossed the nose and I'm confident he's turned behind me, I put the nose down, flaps up, and I'm out of there. Just bear in mind that I didn't just put my nose down and what's the phrase? I didn't just bug out at this moment for just casual reasons. I'm rolling and turning as I am accelerating, because if I had just ditched out of the fight at any other point, he would have been able to come up behind me and shoot me, because again, better acceleration. But with the MiG turning behind me, right, he's slow, he's turning, and that's my opportunity to build some speed while he doesn't have much. So that helps me get kind of a lead start, a head start, that's a better phrase, in bugging out. So I hit the floor, and one of the things that I'm doing is I'm staying low so I can make my visual signature harder to track. Hopefully he'll just have a tougher time tracking me as I escape. And once again, as I'm climbing up, I am rolling and changing direction, just in the hopefully unlikely case he is glued to my 6, aiming for a cannon shot. And then to make the escape good, I am pointing into the sun, just to make things a bit more challenging for him if he tries to follow me. So see him get a little bit further away on the radar warning receiver, and he's gone. So I bugged out here because this fight is essentially a impossible, unstoppable force meets an immovable object kind of situation. You can turn at low speed against the MiG-19 pretty well as long as your fuel holds out, but they can climb and maneuver out of your firing solution easier than you can. So again, against a good opponent, you won't actually get much progress there. You're just going to be looping around and burning gas, and the winner of the fight will be whoever runs out of gas last. So again, not exactly a brave macho man conclusion. No ego fluffing gun camera footage in this shot, but set the set the slats in as we go to our cruising altitude to save some fuel, and we'll call this fight done. Lessons learned: you can fight the F-4 slow. If you get into a fight with a MiG-19, choose your moment, work the fight slow when they're behind and turning, go nose low and escape. Live to fight another day. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video.